how to recognize what state you are in just based on kind of what's happening within you. So my first thought is it's going to be really difficult to do that unless you have enough of your ventral vagal safe and social state online or active. So when you're in a fairly safe and social, calm, more or less relaxed state, you can look inward and really be kind of more aware of what's happening within you. And when I say you, I'm referring to the general you. You can be more aware of what's happening within you. And as you lose access to it and you drop down the polyvagal ladder into that flight energy, you'll still have enough of that ventral stuff active to notice like I feel like I'm losing my access to the present moment, or I feel more anxious. So I think that's my first thought is the more ventral activation you have, it's going to be easier the more grounded you are in the present moment, the more anchored you are in the present moment, it's going to be easier to notice what's happening within you. And how that feels, person to person, there might be some similarities, or there probably will be some similarities, but it's going to be different person to person. But as we drop down our polyvagal ladder, we might notice in the flight-fight energy that our muscles are tensing up more. Because in the flight-fight energy, we're preparing to run away or to fight. Our body's perceiving that we need to. That doesn't mean that we're actually running away. It doesn't mean that we're actually fighting. But we might feel we're preparing to do that. And so that might be tense muscles. That might be our breathing becomes more shallow, because in the flight-fight energy, the sympathetic state, again, if we're preparing to run away or fight, our breathing needs to be faster to keep bringing in oxygen, because we're burning through resources really quickly in that state. So we might feel our breathing go more fast. That doesn't sound very intelligent, but the breathing becomes more shallow. It's in the chest in particular. So breathing changes, muscle tension changes. What else? Our thoughts will change. Story follows state. So in this state, if you're anchored well enough in your ventral state, you'll be able to notice that as you drop down out of that your thoughts might be becoming more paranoid or fearful, more anxious, more blaming. And I'm using flight fight together here because they're both sympathetic, but there is a different flavor of what thought you're in in flight versus fight of the sympathetic autonomic nervous system. In the flight sympathetic, our thoughts are going to be more anxious, and it's going to be more evasive, more like eluding responsibility, trying to get away from blame, deflect blame, deflect responsibility. It wasn't my fault, it was their fault. The kids I work with in my high school, why do they have to do it, but I don't have to do it? Or why do I have to do it, but they don't have to do it? That kind of stuff. It could be more of that flight energy, more of panicky kind of flavor to the thoughts that are in our heads. It'll be, like, why is that person looking at me? It's like wondering and questioning and assuming ill intent, because everything is filtered through that defensive state. So the world becomes dangerous to us, and we perceive it that way, whether it's real or not. In the fight sympathetic state, the thoughts are going to be more blaming about like whose fault it is. It can be, it was this person's fault, that person's fault. Why are you talking to me this way? Why are you attacking me? Or not why are you, but you are doing this. You are this way. Like if you're talking with a friend or a spouse or something like that, it's like you're being this way, and it's more of an accusation and a blame. It's not curiosity. It's not interest in the other person's state or how they're feeling. It's an accusation. So in the fight sympathetic energy, that's what things can sound like. In the sympathetic flight fight, that's kind of a few pointers. I hope that helps of what it might look like or feel like. It's going to be, things are faster. There's more energy to what you're doing. There's more fear, more defensiveness, more evasion, more anxiousness or worrying or nervousness. Things are tenser. Your heartbeat picks up. Yeah, that's kind of what flight fight can feel like in general. In general, shutdown. How to recognize that? It's really kind of the opposite of that. It's a depletion. It's drained. It is. Yeah, it's like you're just there's no energy. It's a lack of energy, and that makes sense because in the shutdown state, that's there to conserve resources. So flight fight sympathetic is there to burn through resources. Sorry, you might hear my kids in the background. You might hear so distracting. Hang on a second. I'm going to gently ask her to stop yelling. Okay, so for the shutdown state, when we're in a shutdown, when kids, I love it when kids use their voices. What a nice reframe. What a nice reframe. Okay. In the shutdown state, the body is intending or attempting to conserve resources, right? That means it's the opposite of flight, fight, sympathetic, which is it burns through resources in order to get to safety, in order to fight or run away, and then get back to safety. So you need a high level of energy consumption to make that happen. Now the dog's barking in the background. Usually I record at nighttime when it's quiet, and this is why. Because it's not quiet in the mornings. Not usually, I always record at nighttime. But now shutdown is different because shutdown is conserving resources. And the point there is that if we go into this limp collapse, we need those resources to be there when we come out of it. And hopefully, use our fight, flight, sympathetic energy to get out of that situation and then get to safety. So the body shuts down completely. So how does that feel? It feels emotionally just emptiness. Loneliness is a big one. That seems to be a constant with everyone that I work with in therapy. That loneliness is a really big undercurrent to the shutdown state. Emptiness. People describe it as a fogginess or gray. They'll use words like that. A sinking feeling, yeah, yeah, I can see that, yeah. So the words that we use are different person to person, but they're all kind of around that same area of where there's like this disconnection from the world in a way, and it might not be a full-on dissociation, it could be, but there's this disconnection between the self and the environment, or the self and other people, and that makes a lot of sense because we are in the shutdown state. We're disconnecting and conserving resources. We're no longer running, we're no longer fighting, but we're also not connecting with other people. Our safe and social state is like offline. So we feel this disconnection, we feel this loneliness, we feel this emptiness and fogginess or gray or whatever it is. You might, like you said, you might lose connection with yourself even. It seems like when we're in that shutdown state that we're really kind of up in our head. So we have our thoughts. Very much social isolation, yeah. So we have our thoughts, and we do really well in our thoughts. Not that they're good thoughts, not that they're helpful thoughts, not that they're positive or self-affirming or anything. But we have a relationship with our thoughts, it seems like, and a really big disconnection with everything else going on below the neck. And in our thoughts, there's the way you can recognize shutdown is that it's more pessimistic. There's not a whole lot of hope there. A lot of worthlessness, a lot of stories about the self and how, we can't accomplish anything, or how we're worthless, or how we're stupid, or, whatever. It'll be something like that. There's no belief that change is possible, or very little belief. And even if change is possible, there might be very little belief that the person themselves can be instrumental in their own change. And that's really important. The kids I serve in the school, that's them. Like that's a lot of them have that story of, school is important, but I don't know if I can do it. Like I know school's important, but I don't believe, I don't have that inner energy to make it happen, even though I cognitively know school's important. I know work is important. Someone might feel or think, I know work is important, I need it, but inside I have no drive or energy or motivation to put into work and to put into my own advancement. And so that could be what the shutdown state looks like, what it feels like. It's really that emptiness. As far as in the body, it's hard to recognize in the body because there's such a disconnection from the body. in that state, if you're fully in that state. But people might recognize something happening in their stomach, like you mentioned that sinking feeling. But in the stomach, like an emptiness in the stomach. The stomach seems to be an area where, and that's where the dorsal vagal pathways live from the brainstem. They go down all the way to the stomach. So that seems to be kind of a center for where the shutdown state happens. But it's really this overall lethargy, this overall disconnection, slowness, tiredness, fatigue, because the body is like it's just shutting down and wanting to conserve resources to survive.